The Beaumonts walked past me like I was a shadow at their father's funeral. I set the urn gently, ignoring Madison's scoff. Even the help gets a seat now. Her voice stabbed like ice. But Mr. Beaumont once said, "Your family, Alicia." That night, he pressed the funeral program into my hand and whispered, "They'll never understand what you gave me." I held it now, trembling, as Tyler sneered, motioning me to the back pew. I didn't move. I wasn't invisible anymore. The lawyer glanced at me before the will writing. Charles snorted. "Why is she even here?" Patricia whispered something cruel. I remembered bathing Mr. Beaumont when he couldn't lift his arms, feeding him when they were gone for months. He told me about his favorite poem, the one he wanted read today. I'd printed it and tucked it into the funeral program. As Charles laughed, I touched the paper. Steady, he may be gone, but his trust in me wasn't. At the reading, Mr. Edwards cleared his throat. "The estate will past it." He paused. Tyler scoffed. I braced myself. "Alicia Washington?" The silence cracked. Patricia gasped. Charles stood shouting. "This is a joke." I froze, clutching the program. Their eyes burned holes through me. Mr. Edwards continued. "She was the only one present during his final 6 months. The truth stunned them, but not me." Tyler followed me into the hallway, seething. "You manipulated a dying man." His voice dripped venom. I met his glare. I cleaned his wounds. "You missed Christmas." He stepped closer, fists clenched. Mr. Edwards appeared behind him. "We have records," he said calmly. I took a breath. Tyler retreated, muttering. That moment wasn't victory, but it was power. Just a little, and it rattled them. Charles produced a folder. "We contest it." Dad was incoherent. Inside were photos of me labeled unlicensed aid. A red herring. Patricia claimed the will had been forged. Mr. Edwards opened a drawer, revealing video logs of Mr. Beaumont, lucid and laughing. He signed it on camera. The photos meant nothing, but their fear real. I watched them crumble. That folder, empty threat, just like their love. The twist came when Mr. Edwards played one last message. Mr. Beaumont's voice: "If they challenge this, remind them love earns legacy, not blood." Patricia cried. Tyler walked out. I stood still. The funeral program pressed to my heart. Mr. Beaumont had seen me, truly, and now, everyone else would too. Not as help, not as charity, but as the woman he trusted most. 2 months later, I opened a hospice center in Mr. Beaumont's name. Madison sent flowers, cheap ones. Charles emailed, "Let's talk." I didn't answer. Instead, I framed the funeral program beside our first patient's bed. His legacy wasn't theirs to waste. It was mine to honor with dignity, care, and memory. I stood by the garden I planted behind the hospice, and said, "He'd be proud." I smiled, watering roses grown from Mr. Beaumont's favorite seeds. The Beaumonts faded from headlines, their greed forgotten. But every bloom whispered what he gave me, not just money, recognition. The kind that lives long after the last breath.